Welcome to the Winner Circle, the podcast covering Jiu-Jitsu, MMA, and other combat sports. I am one of your hosts, Eugene Plowden, and with me, as always, my podcast partner, Isaiah Gathings. What's up, man?
What's up, man?
If this is your first time with us, I want you to know we are members of the Martial Arts Center Network. And on Mondays, you got the Winner Circle with myself, Isaiah Gathings, Chris Walker, and Angel Diaz. Tuesdays, the Inside Scoop with Alex and Jeff. Wednesdays, you can get the traditional way with Brett Shumway. And on Thursdays, you can get the Fists, Kicks, and Flicks with myself, Joe Hartley, and Angel Diaz. For more information, you can check us out on all of our social media platforms. Just look for the Martial Arts Center Network on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Patreon. And don't forget about the main app, the Martial Arts Center Network app. Zeke, it's showtime. What's happening, man?
Yes, sir. Nothing much, man. Just trying to, get myself relaxed and back acclimated. I traveled, left to go to Virginia Wednesday for a summit. One of these martial arts summits or conferences, business summits and conferences. And I got back, man, I think like 2:00 in the morning this morning, and then slept a few hours, went to church, and then left church, came home, tried to catch some football, tried to catch a couple of Z's and get ready for the show tonight. But yeah, I'm just getting back reacclimated to things, I guess.
How was the summit?
Summit was really nice, man. It's really informative. I went to some, but it was years and years and years ago. So originally back in the day, I don't even know if they're still around anymore. It was like EFC. They had, you had these different people that handled your payment processing software and companies and things like that. And they would occasionally have these different summits where they would have people, successful school owners, that would get together, and they would have these conferences or summits where you can go and you can learn valuable tips that you can go back to your academy or your school studio and implement. I hadn't been to one in years, and now that I just recently opened my academy back up in Michigan, I thought it would be helpful to be able to go to something like that. And it was really helpful. Just being around, it's really fellowshipping, man. Like, that's all it is that you do in any activity that you do. It doesn't matter really what you're a part of. Just being in a room of other like-minded individuals that can sit down with you and have conversation that is specific and germane to your business and help you to be able to understand. You bounce ideas off of them. It's really helpful no matter what. So that was good. I mean, the traveling is getting pretty stressful with all of these cancellations and everything that's going on right now. The traveling is getting really, really stressful. And coming back, there were some significant delays that I experienced because of the air traffic control fiascos, almost some cancellations. So I'm blessed that nothing was canceled. But it's traveling's not the best right now, folks. So if you're looking to travel, pray and cross your fingers because it's not getting any better right now, unfortunately.
Well, it sounds like all of that's about to be over. Hopefully this week, because it seems like they just voted to reopen the government.
Okay, when's that supposed to transpire?
It just came out recently that they have 10 Democrats that are going to join the Republicans in the Senate. It looks like they have enough to open the government. So it's probably going to be this week. We should be getting back to normal, hopefully. So we'll see what happens. I've never been to any of the seminars, martial arts seminars. I know that Ski goes to some every now and then, and I know Los goes to some. I've seen Jotty. I've seen some of his posts that he does those also, but I've never been to them. So they're pretty informative, huh?
They are. I mean, especially the ones where people are very transparent. And this gentleman, he really was. He was really transparent, and talked about the numbers. Like, as martial artists, and I've said this before. Somehow or another, we get grouped into this category of being pious, like individuals that's supposed to give, and then not look at it as a business or not be successful on the other side. It's almost taboo if you talk about getting money from something or benefiting financially. Yet and still, people want nice, clean, well-run facilities with great staff and instruction, with all type of amenities and things like that, in which as adults, they understand these things require, money, finances. And then also individuals should be able to realistically earn a living from being able to do this, should they choose to be able to do so. So when you talk to people at these type of things and they're able to actually speak to you and let you know, yeah, it's great, the martial arts is fantastic and we could talk about that, but it doesn't matter what style or system that you do. let's talk about making sure you understand the martial arts standpoint for whatever it is that you teach, and keeping that pure and giving great experiences in doing that. And then also let's make sure that we approach the business side of things and understanding it. So some of the people are very transparent. They start talking about their numbers, and things of that particular nature. So it helps you to be able to, kind of understand it, where they are and what you need to do to be able to get your business to that particular level as well. So I find them to be very helpful. Like, again, I've only been to a few years ago, but just going to this one, I would definitely go to more and more, because if you can just get little nuggets of information, little nuggets of things from each one of the ones that you go to, and you're able to go back and instantly implement them into your program, then it's just going to do nothing but help you to be more successful, both on the mat and off the mat as well.
Good, man. That's good, man. This weekend, man, I have not done anything this weekend. I've been laying around the house for pretty much, man, just relaxing. Yesterday, me and my wife, we went to the grocery store and did our shopping for the week. And today, she's not feeling well, so I've been home taking care of her. And then my nose started running a little bit. I got a little cold or something. So I just took that as just being able just to chill on the couch and watch TV and relax and look after her today. And then last week, I was really tired last week. Like, I didn't feel like really doing too much anything last week. I didn't go train. Only thing I did was go to work, taught my classes, and that was it. I did go to class. I went to one jiu-jitsu class on Tuesday, but other than that, I didn't really do anything, man. And I was just tired, right? And I asked some other people, and other people also said, yeah, that they had been feeling tired last week. And then it hit me about the time change. That's what it was. Yeah. Because I was like, why am I going to sleep? It's only 10 o'clock. Why am I getting sleepy at 10 o'clock? And my body was used to it being 11 o'clock,
That's right.
I didn't even think about that, so.
It's the time change, but it's also the climate as well. When the climate starts to change and things like that, that's one thing, man, about being in environments and cities and states like that. These are some dramatic things that it can do to your mind and your body. You start to see people become much more fatigued. The depression starts to increase because people become recluses, right? They're not out anymore. The sun's not out like it was. And if the sun is out, it's not the warm sun of your skin like it was before. It gets dark earlier. So it's 5 o'clock and it's dark. So people are going in the house. They're becoming more recluse. They're becoming more involved in whatever vices that they may have. And unfortunately, there's the depression starts to increase around this time, because people are laying around. They're not active like they used to be. And then if you look at the numbers, and this is something that's obviously not a popular thing to talk about or great, but oftentimes the suicide numbers start to increase around this time too. So we have to really make sure we're cognizant, both mentally and emotionally of these things when we're staying in places, like in the Midwest where the seasons change. Just your body and mind, doesn't matter how active that you're used to being, how mentally aware you're used to being. These things tend to take a significant toll on people. And if we're not, in touch with ourselves, we won't even notice it. And you'll look up, you're like, what's going on? Why am I feeling this way? Why am I not getting off the couch? I'm an active person. I'm going to jiu-jitsu 2 or 3 days a week. I'm normally doing this, boom, boom, boom. And then it changes. And it's just by no fault of our own. It just comes with the territory between the time change and the climate change. So I'm glad that you recognized it and you got to the bottom of it, and you can put it in the forefront of your mind and be cognizant of it for sure.
Yeah, and also, man, I'd be doing so much running around also. So I needed just to chill out and relax. And the holidays are coming now, man. So it's time to start spending money on gifts and everything, man. So
oh man. The worst time for our business when they start to prioritize gift giving over a tuition in martial arts. So you're looking forward to it in one vein, and then another one you're like, oh boy, here we go.
So, yeah, exactly. Yeah. But you know what? Like I said, like I found, like I told you before, man, I kind of found a way, at least as far as new students. I don't take new students in October, so their trials aren't ending in December because that was killing me. So when I stopped doing that, when I stopped doing that, I pretty much still keep people around the holiday season. Now in between Christmas and New Year, I don't teach that week. For years, we always taught during that time.
You're wasting money.
Show up.
You're wasting money.
People do not show up.
You're wasting money. I normally stop around the 15th of the month, and people say, that long of a break? I'm like, dude, like when you have your own brick and mortar facility and you're talking about having to pay, and you have it in the Midwest or the East Coast where it gets really cold, and you talking about to crank that heat up on 90, and you got it going for 5, 6, 7 hours, and you got 3 students to show up. You know what I mean? And you sitting up there, and you have a staff that you have to pay. You have an electric bill. You got that heat on 90 to warm the. So you warmed it up before they walk in. You're not cutting it on when they walk in the door, right? So it's been on for 2 hours, so it can be toasty when these 3 people show up for the day. You sat there and sacrificed 5, 6, 7 hours of your day. It just the financially doesn't make no sense. I close up. If I make it to the 20th, that's a generous year. I'll close up as early as the 13th to the 15th. I'll open up. No, seriously, at December 1st, I say this is it. It's unlimited training, which means that if you normally do a alternating day, a Monday, a Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, whatever you do, you can train every day. So that means you can get the exact same amount of classes in that you normally would in a month between now and when we close. So you can just come 5 days a week to make up for the fact it's a short month. But if that's not your jam and what you want to do,
idea. That's a very good idea.
No, So that's not if that's not going to fit within your schedule, I offered it. So if you can't make it, most people get 8 to 10 classes in a year. A month anyway, according to their package. Most people are allowed to train 2 days a week. That gives you 8 classes a month. If you add on maybe black belt days or sparring days or weapons, you might get around 10 or 12, if you're lucky, right? So, okay, fine. So if you get 8 to 12 classes a month, if I open on December 1st and then we close on the 15th, and I say you can come every day, right? Between that, if you add the weekend in, you still can get 12 classes in a month that you normally would get just consistently. And we close up around the 15th or the 17th. You've had an opportunity to get your classes in. And if you couldn't make it every day, at least was offered and available to you. But to be able to stay behind, man, and just stay open that extra week or two, it just financially doesn't make good sense. And it's never worked out. And people just don't come, like you said.
Yeah, I normally stop around maybe the 21st or 22nd, one of those days, right? I normally go then. But even getting out, like you said, man, you're only going to get so many kids showing up. So it is what it is. But and then even after the new year, most of the time, I'll start classes. It just kind of depends on, what's the first of the month, so like if the first of the month is on a Friday or Saturday, then, the kids will come back on Monday or Tuesday, it gives them a couple of days. I really don't like it if the first is a Monday. I really don't know if kids are going to show up on that Tuesday or Wednesday.
Right.
Anyway,
right.
And then I kind of feel bad, like, maybe I should push this to the 7th, and now it's like these people have been off for 2 weeks now, but you paid for a whole month of karate,
but see, that's where the contracts, when I used to do contracts back in the day, it really came into place, because when you broke it down like that, it changed things. So I would have parents to come in and say, oh, well, you know what? I paid for a full month. And it's like, well, no, you didn't. You signed an agreement, and in your agreement, you financed over a monthly basis this much tuition over a year's time. So if you signed up for 6 months, or if you signed up for a year, just like when you sign up, when you lease a car, right? It doesn't matter if the month have more days in it or less days. You didn't pay to drive the car that particular month. You're financing a car, in a lease contract over a period of time. So if it's $100 a month, it's $100 a month over a period of time. You're not paying for that particular month. It made more sense in the contract setting. I can understand it being much more of an issue when people are just monthly, like everybody's membership for the most part is nowadays. It does beg them to be able to bring up that argument, and again, that can make sense. But what I always let them know is this: there's some months where there's more days in a month, right? Exactly. And we don't charge you any more in those, right?
That's what I always say.
Sometimes you get 8 classes in a month, sometimes you get 10, just based on the way the calendar is arranged. We don't come back and say, hey, listen, you know what? It's 2 extra days this month. We're going to have to increase your tuition for this particular month. Yep. It happens that way. You know what I mean? Yep. And they have a lot of instructors, Ski being one of them, who follows the actual, and he insulates himself because he says, hey, listen, I'm letting you know when you sign up, we follow the school schedule. So whatever the school is in that district, whenever they're open, we're open. Whenever they're closed, we're closed. So if they're closed for a President's Day or a Columbus Day or a holiday or a Halloween or whatever, our schedule mirrors theirs. That way there can be no argument at all, because it makes sense to people, because they're like, well, if the school's out during this time, he did let us know from jump that they follow the same schedule. So people already expect what days to black out and not be training. So it can be tough, but you do feel bad because you do have a few loyal people who really do want to come. And it's like maybe 5 or 6 or 7 of them. And they're really disappointed because of that extended break. So it doesn't mean that they're not important. It just means from a business perspective. And then, like you said, you're ripping and running. Sometimes we have additional jobs. We have family. We're humans as well. And it's like, we need that break. We need that recharge and reset. And sometimes even the people who enjoy it, they need it too, but they don't realize it until you force them to take it. You're like, look, we're close. You're taking this break. And then they come back rejuvenated at the beginning of the year.
Ready to go. You know, they be ready to go too when they come back.
They do.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. When it comes to your academy, do you have people at a certain belt level that starts falling off? Like what I'm noticing is green belts and blue belts, especially if those kids do not go to tournaments and they're just coming to train. It's like, I get it if you're bored, you know, because you've been doing, it's not as exciting anymore like it used to be when you first started. And when you're red belts and black belts, you're so much better than, you know, those green belts and blue belts.
Right.
And for the red belts, you're almost at the black belt level. I really don't understand when red belts quit karate, that or brown belts, whatever. Red and brown, same thing. I don't understand why those kids quit karate. But what I found is around the green belt, blue belt level is when kids may start losing interest. What have you found that also, or do you have another level?
Let me see. The truth of the matter is, so we've kind of restructured our thinking right now of how we're thinking about things. So especially by us opening back up again. So I'll tell you where we are mentally right now and how we're trying to shape things and give you some background context of things, and then I'll answer your question. So right now, I've got beginners or I've got black belts, right, for the most part, because since we were close to that 6-month period of time, 6-year period of time between COVID and we opened back up in June, I maintained a great deal of my black belts. They were the ones I was teaching via Zoom classes, and they're the ones running the academy in Michigan. And then I had a couple small programs that I had there over time that, dissipated. I think I have one intermediate student, but for the most part, it was either, advanced or black belt individuals. And then now there's beginners. And now I have people that are graduating just over the course of the past few months to yellow belt and things like that. We don't have anybody that's getting ready to go for blue belt. We just, graduated a couple different crops of yellow belts right now, which are looking good, and it's exciting to see some growth and some progress. So where we are now, it's like, let's get them to yellow belt and let's worry about the rest later, right? Because it's a brand new curriculum. They go into a different class. I always tell the parents the two biggest belts for the kids, for martial arts students, not kids, is the yellow belt and the black belt, right? It's your first belt that you get, so it's the most memorable and significant one. You're excited because you just tested, you passed. You can look up on the wall, you see that you've advanced to another belt. There's some confidence the level that's there, right? You're learning new techniques. And then for the black belt, you've accomplished something that you know to be significant. So these are really big moments. So right now we're navigating through making sure these kids stay interested. They're naturally interested once they get that yellow belt. For us, the way that we do things is we don't teach any forms of white belt. We don't. I used to do it way back in the day.
You said forms, like basic forms?
Forms. I don't teach any forms of white belt.
I don't either.
I used to back in the day, and when I understood how discouraged kids can become from trying to learn these patterns that really aren't all that important that early on. Like, if the truth of the matter is, when we're getting students, we're looking at students from the long term, right? Mm-hmm. And the old school perspective of martial arts used to be, let's see how tough of a yellow belt I can get. I got the toughest yellow belt in Michigan, and who cares about the toughest yellow belt? You know what I mean? Like, who cares? You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't make any difference.
Right.
Like, so if you're looking at the lifetime expectancy of a student over a course of time, me hoping to be able to get that student to black belt, the objective is to just make sure they get the information. I don't have to stuff it all in. And I had students that could not remember those patterns, those forms. And they would get so discouraged, they would quit. And I'm like, is this really necessary and important this early on? And some people say, well, just break the form down and teach them half of it. It doesn't matter. Like, at the white belt level, it needs to be all wins. Every single time they come to class, It should be nothing but encouragement. They should be nothing but happy. There should be no possibility that's built in of failure. We have to make sure that this becomes a habit. It becomes a routine. It becomes something they're excited about. They're looking forward to, something that's kind of easy for them to be able to grasp, because you're going to have different people from different walks of life, different understanding, different experience levels. We preach about how martial arts for everybody, it should feel that way. Once they test it into a new rank, they expect it to be more challenging. And then when it is, they look at it and they welcome it like, okay, I'm yellow belt now. It should be tougher. So we teach them that at the yellow belt. So we'll see how it looks between now and green belt. I'm looking at my numbers closely now. I think we've got like a dozen yellow belts, over the past couple months that we've graduated. So I can look and see how many of these individuals fall off, or where they fall off between now and green belt. To your point, though, having an academy for 15 years before COVID, multiple academies, and before I closed them down before COVID, green belt is really that belt. You are absolutely right. It's definitely green belt. And if you get them through green belt, about blue belt, it's really hard to get them past the blue belt. For us, I will explain why. We have a very, very vast form system, because my style is a freestyle. So we have forms that's specific to our style, but we never got rid of any of the traditional forms. So we never got rid of any of the traditional Tangsudo forms that we learned. So you have those forms plus the forms that are specific to our style, which means that our form system is twice as big as any other traditional academy. So between white and black belt, where most systems have maybe 8 to 9 forms, we have like 17. So green belt, you're learning like 4 to 5 forms in green belt, because we have to make sure we honor and show an homage to the traditional martial arts. I don't believe in eliminating those forms at all, because they're your foundation for the art in which you're teaching. But if you have a specific system, a form-specific system for whatever it is, or your own freestyle that you've created, you have forms for that. It's important, if you're going to stand alone from a lineage standpoint, that you have forms for those as well that separates you from anyone else. So we have 2 form sets that are intertwined into one, and they're equally as important across the board. One's not more important than the other one. So for us in green belt, it's students learning a lot of forms. Like it's the belt that they learn the most forms in. And in our system, we have the most stripes in that belt. So in all of our belts, we have 3 stripes, except for in green belt, we have 4. In green belt, for us, each belt color represents something different. So green is growth. So our green belt represents growth. So there's the most growth that happens in that belt. Honestly, the most of our fighting techniques we learn in green belt. The ones that they go to tournament, the ones that you defend yourself in the streets, those techniques, the majority of them come in the green belt curriculum. So students spend the most time in that curriculum. And because they're not advancing at such a fast rate, it takes no time to get from the white to yellow belt. You know what I mean? It's a very simplistic system. You know what I mean? Within 60 to 90 days, most students are moving into the yellow belt. The yellow belt's a little bit longer. Depends on how fast you pick up the forms, because that's a new concept. You have to learn 3 forms, as well as all of your new techniques that you're learning in that particular curriculum. That's up to the practitioner. If you pick up fast, it can be a very fast transition. If you don't, then it might be a little bit slower. But most people make it to that green belt. At green belt, it slows down because it's a very big and vast technique system. Self-defense, you have to learn so many self-defense techniques. You're doing 1 steps at that level, and then you also have to learn 4 forms in addition to remembering everything you've learned in the belts prior to that. At that point in time, the kids are a little bit older. The newness isn't there anymore, so it's not as new as it was before. Not as fun. These kids have additional activities they're probably a part of now. It's harder. The testing requirements are much more stringent. The instructors are not as lenient, as they were before. So there's probably less high fives and more going inside, give me some push-ups. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, wait a minute, man. Wait, what happened here?
But what's wrong with that stance? Come on, deeper horseback riding stance or deeper front stance.
Yeah, it's different. So at that point in time, we do lose a lot of students between the green and blue belt, and that's why if they make it to blue belt, that's a miracle. And then even blue belt is difficult in itself because of the things that we teach and we expect. So at that point in time, and this is kind of what they talked about at the summit, you have to start looking at your average lifetime expectancy of a student. If I'm losing them at blue belt, I've probably exceeded the maximum lifetime expectancy. Now, we want, as instructors, as black belts, as school owners, as instructors, we want to graduate people to black belt. We feel like anything other than that's a failure. And that's where we get hard on ourselves. We're like, what happened, man? What did I do? How did I lose this person? And that should be your thought process. But if you look at your analytics and you look at your numbers, you realize that as your curriculum starts to become more stringent, unless you're willing to compromise your curriculum, which is up to you, and start watering things down or taking things out or pushing things further back, there's going to be some belt that your students are going to hit where they start asking themselves some tough questions as if, do I want to continue to put all this work in and it's getting challenging, it's getting difficult? Do I really want it that bad? Or did I get the fun out of the karate that I wanted to get, and do I want to move on to do something else? And that's why you start losing students around that belt.
Man, I'm about to switch around the order that I have for questions, because you just brought something up. With that statement that you just said, I'm going to jump into my next question, because that was all good. And before I get to this question, I did that, man. When I started, I didn't have my own building. So I was teaching out of a community center, right? And it was just me, and I was just teaching 2 days a week. And I had a lot of kids who were having a hard time keeping up with forms. And then I had other kids who were picking up on the forms quickly. And that became an issue for me. So for maybe about a few months, 6-7 months, maybe even a year, I stopped doing forms for a while because it was just me. And I was having a hard time keeping up with teaching these forms and spending time with kids that needed the extra help. Like I said, I only had 2 days a week to train in this community center. So it's not like I could have had them come in on different days and work with them separately or anything like that. I wasn't able to do that. So I had to, I pushed it back. But then when I pushed back the forms and the one steps, I didn't really like the curriculum, and I felt like I wasn't staying true to traditional karate and traditional martial arts that I was taught. And of course, the forms, those are good for working on a focus and concentration for these kids, their memory, making sure they're turning the correct way in the correct techniques, and it's extra exercises for them to do their blocks, their punches and kicks, properly. But with that being said, my question, we talked about this on Fist Kick to Flicks, myself, Angel, and Joe. Do you think karate will be around in 50 years? Especially with the explosion of MMA over the last 25 years or so, and also with jiu-jitsu gaining popularity also now, karate, and when people constantly saying, like, downplaying karate, not giving it a lot of respect, do you think it's going to be around? Are we the last generation of people that's going to be pushing out traditional karate?
I think that is something that nobody needs to worry about. I don't want to use the word no-brainer, but I definitely believe that it will be around in the next 50 years and beyond. You have to consider how many generations it's already made it through to begin with. Like, we're so separated from the origins of the martial art that we train in that it's absolutely insane that it's made it this far. Like, it just doesn't conventionally make any sense that it should have made it as far as it has. Look at me and you. Like, look at us, people that look like me and you. How are we teaching Korean and Japanese martial arts systems that was from, 1500 Okinawa, Japan, and all these type of things, or however far it is that whatever you teach has come from. Like, and this came from some people training a group of individuals because they were concerned about war coming, and they picking specific students that they entrusted with these forms that were hidden ways to be able to defend themselves, or hidden bunkai that's inside of it that's supposed to represent their style of their system, and they're passing it to their most trusted students, and then they're passing it on, and then they're passing it on. It's almost like a letter, like even the Bible, for example, where you find, or whatever it is that you believe, where you're finding Dead Sea Scrolls, or you're finding these pieces of documents that are popping up that were buried for you. And you're like, really? And it still has the integrity of it to some degree. I'm always surprised at how people are surprised that this isn't the true Taekwondo way. This isn't the true Shotokan way. It's like, man, do you know how long ago this came? Like, the fact that any of this is even authentic is amazing within itself. And folks got the nerve to argue with other people about the authenticity of something that's so far removed away from us that it's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But I digress. Like if it's able to make it this far, as long as we're doing our job and we're actually passing it along to other individuals who are as passionate as we are, it's not going to die. And that's the reason why it was important for me to embrace everything that I learned traditionally and not change or alter any of that. But also, I needed to make something that's going to stand the test of time and a legacy for myself and for the people that was a part of what it is that we've been doing. I wanted to create a freestyle, a system that will stand the test of time, and I'm able to organize the things the way that I want. I'm alive to be able to articulate to individuals, this is how I want it to be taught in my stead. I have documents, I have things written down, for when I step down, when I'm not here. I have things set up for an order of individuals who's supposed to be successors, and I'm trying to set things up to where I ensure that it's around. So if it's Tank Sudo that people aren't necessarily doing, it doesn't matter, because you're getting that in what it is that I'm teaching, or Taekwondo or whatever, or Jiu-Jitsu or whatever it is. You're getting those things in what it is that you're learning from my particular system, keeping the authenticity of those things, but also making sure that it's disseminated in a particular way that I'm seeing fit before I step down or before I leave this earth. I think that that traditional martial artists, the way they feel is that we've seen this stuff before. We've seen these things come before. Think about how threatened that traditional martial arts is with MMA right now. But at one point, kickboxing was the MMA. That was the threat that we're seeing now. Kickboxing was huge, and people were like, is karate going to be around? Look at this kickboxing. This American kickboxing is taking the world by storm. And there was this phenom where kickboxing was big with the Joe Lewises and everybody else, and the Billy Blanks, and everybody was out there doing it. And then people didn't want to do karate during those times. It was kickboxing. That was the real thing, right? That was a ring sport. And people felt threatened, the traditional martial artists at that time. And guess what? It phased out. It did, until Muay Thai came around. And it reinvigorated kickboxing, because it's like, oh, we're the best kickboxing has ever been. And then you got the American kickboxers, they coming out of the woodworks. No, you ain't. And then that reinvigorated that. And then that started to die down when Jiu-Jitsu came. Well, kickboxing, or it doesn't matter, whatever, Muay Thai or American kickboxing, we'll beat them. That started to explode. And then it was like, okay, then that phased down a little bit. Then the MMA came. And then now the MMA and the Jiu-Jitsu is prominent. I think that the system that has been put into place, the ranking system that Jigoro Kano and a lot of those other people thought about back in the day, about how to be able to actually get a person transition traditional martial arts to something to where it can be for everybody. Remember, back in the day, it was a proving ground. Even back as early as the 70s, you used to watch those old, films, or look at those old dojos, and it was more of a proving ground. It was more like breaking people, seeing who can't deal with, who can't stand. It wasn't to the 80s when the Karate Kid movie came out that kids really started getting involved in it. Right. Back in the 60s and 70s, with the Rod Van Cleef and the Bruce Lee eras and all those other individuals back in that time, a lot of academies didn't teach kids. It wasn't about that. Kids, this ain't for kids. This isn't for women. This is a proving ground. And their goal and their job was to more break you and show you that you couldn't do this. You were not cut out for this type of an activity, more than it was to be able to, be an inclusive thing. So I think that the way that they structured things way back in the day, they started making sure that they understood that this is an inclusive for everybody thing. This could be something that's done from a war standpoint, but it's something that can be done from a self-defense standpoint, and eventually from a casual standpoint. I think that the way that the martial arts is structured, it'll be very difficult for it to just be gone, right? Even Muay Thai now, even No-Gi Jiu-Jitsu has modeled itself after traditional martial arts. What do you mean by that? Professor, what do you mean by that? Let me tell you what. Muay Thai didn't have a ranking system. It didn't have a ranking system before, right? But what happened is, if you were not fighting Muay Thai, you started doing what? Losing interest, right? You were doing it for fitness.
Why would you be doing Muay Thai if you're not competing? That doesn't mean that.
Why would you be doing it? Not necessarily that, but why would I be doing it for 4 years? Why would I be doing it for 3 years? Why would I do it for 2 years? If I came in there with a goal to learn how to defend myself or to lose weight, then within 12 months, maybe even 6 months, I've accomplished that goal. Yeah. But if I have a ranking system, though, then that changes things. So no-gi. Okay, yeah. Well, if you're not competing, if you're not fighting MMA, what are you going there sweating with your chest? Somebody's got their chest out. You're always the super sweaty guy. If you don't do jiu-jitsu, it's always one guy. that sweats more than everybody, right? To the point where people are slipping on the sweat on the mat. Nobody wants to go with him. And he has his rash guard, it's soaked, nicest guy. You know what I mean? And nobody wants to go with him. Why am I going with Tony over here, 4 days a week or whatever else? What do I have to gain? I don't want to compete, nor do I want to do MMA. But if there's a ranking system, though, I can get a black belt and no gi. That just makes no sense. A black belt and no gi. You need a gi to wear the belt. Now, if you have advanced, like, and again, I'm not throwing shade. I'm saying that they found a way around that where they'll call it a belt, but there's advancements or they have different ways of categorizing it. And I understand that what you're saying when you say a belt is you're saying that you are the equivalent of what this belt would be in gi. I understand that. But they had enough sense and wherewithal to say we need to implement this in here to be able to get people to want to continue coming who aren't interested in competing and who aren't interested in fighting. So even they've adopted this. I think that at the worst, the shift for traditional karate might change, which it has, to where it's about kids now. It's not cool for adults to do karate. If you bring up karate for an adult, they're going to look at you like you're crazy. They're going to say, what you talking about, kickboxing? You talking about MMA? You say, no, karate, traditional karate. I don't understand what you mean. That's okay, karate, that's for the kids. Now, what can I do?
Yeah, but how often do you even get people to call you, like adults, call you for karate? Like, yeah, exactly. The adults that want to do karate were the kids at some point that grew up, and now they're black belts or red belts, blue belts, whatever, that stopped at some point in time and they want to come back and finish. But for the most part, I mean, actually, it's kind of weird. Over the last couple of months, I have gotten a couple of adults give me a call, but they ain't came in, and I think the only reason they've called is because I have boxing and jiu-jitsu for adults also at the school. So you're right.
The only adults you're going to get is parents. That's turn
and them too. Yeah.
And those are the ones that you go for. And then those are the people that invite other people down, which grow your program. But as far as somebody walking in the door and actually asking for it, it's not going to happen. And again, believe it or not, subconsciously, it's a media perspective too, because all we see now with social media that wasn't around back in the day. Remember back in the day, the movies you saw was Bruce Lee. The movies you saw were with adults that were fighting and doing things. Nowadays, we have not only television and movies, but we have social media too. So we're seeing the Karate Kid movie, and we're seeing all these things. Just subconsciously, adults don't feel like, based on what they're seeing in television, in movie and cinema, and in social media, that this is an activity that's for them. It seems like it's for kids. And the things that are far more, aggressive and physical and violent are deemed for the adults.
So let me ask you this then. This is another topic that we had on Fist Kicks and Flicks back in the day. Do you think that MMA will become its own martial art, not just it being a sport, but do you think parents will bring their kids to MMA schools because they want their kids to learn jiu-jitsu, boxing, Muay Thai all at one place? So now MMA is now a martial art. Do you think that's going to happen, or do you think that MMA is still going to just stay segmented?
I don't believe this to be so, but to just go back to your initial question that you had before I answered this one directly, if anything I think will fall off and that wouldn't be around in 50 years, it would be MMA. I think that it has the ability to implode due to the things we've been talking about. Well, due to the things we've been talking about, number one, the oversaturation. Even that you as an avid fan before, you turn to casual fan to where it's to a point now where you good if you don't see it. You know what I mean? And me as well. Like, I mean, I didn't catch the card that was on yesterday at all. Now, mind you, I was traveling. I probably could have, pulled my phone out. I don't feel like I missed nothing. You know what I mean? I looked at the results because I had a couple bucks on a couple people for the sports betting. I mean, to be honest, if I'm not training or working with any fighters actively to get them to that level, if I'm being honest, I'm not really especially concerned. And it's just because I know it'll be around. So for me, it's like I don't appreciate it as much as I did before when it was spread out. I'm like, oh, I'll catch you next week. It'll be on next week. It'll be on tomorrow. And to be honest with you, the quality of the fighting has decreased exponentially. And now the people who are participating in it aren't martial artists. They aren't. And that's the difference from the initial wave. It was built off of, let's see which art form is the best. You got a fool in there with one boxing glove on fighting people. You know what I mean? You got somebody in there with a singlet on. You got somebody in there, with singlet on with some wrestling shoes fighting. You got somebody in there with karate gloves on. Kempo glove. Whatever. That was as ridiculous as it was. You fell in love with it because that's what when you grew up. Mm-hmm. You watched what? Like I'm sure Fist Kicks and Flicks started with you guys probably watching what kind of movie? Old Kung Fu movies. That's probably what you first started watching before you branched out into all these other movies that you guys are watching and reviewing. That's what you grew up on. That's what we grew up on, at least, not the generation now. So for us, we were excited about it because it was like an homage, to the old Kung Fu movies where you got to see whether Tiger Style was the best or whether the Wing Chun or whether Crane Style or Eagle Style. I get to see whether boxing's the best, wrestling's the best, kickboxing is the best. And that's what hooked us, right? And those people, whether they won or lose, they were actual martial artists. They don't call it MMA with the dot in between it anymore because that's what it's called, an acronym if you do that. And if it's an acronym, you have to explain what MMA stands for when the dots are between it. This is how smart the Dana was and a lot of people in the publishing, and the marketing advertising. They no longer made it an acronym because their goal was to be able to make it to where it's just MMA, and they try to make it like it's an actual art. Like MMA is the art. So it's not an acronym anymore. Before it was M.M.A. Mixed martial arts is what it stood for. It doesn't anymore. It's just MMA. And then eventually what they tried to do for a while, which they were successful, and you know this because you've seen a lot of people that say this, they tried to make it to where it was just called MMA. All MMA was called UFC. That's what they wanted to do. So you see somebody like, oh,
so it really started blowing up.
Yeah. Oh, you do that. You do that UFC, huh? You UFC? No. I train mixed martial arts. Oh, so you do UFC though, right? You UFC? No, I do mixed martial arts. I don't understand what you mean. I just asked you that, right? That's it. They try to make it synonymous with that. Mm-hmm. So for me, the way that I look at it is that I think that the oversaturation of it. I think that the fact that these people aren't really martial artists, I don't believe is going anywhere. But back to your question that you asked previously, if any of these things, the things that you mentioned, would go anywhere, I think it would be that, because I think that with the changes that they're making, with the way that they're doing and they're operating things, it's not appeasing to everybody. You're getting a lot of people, especially American fan base, that are sick of these fights. They don't understand grappling. They don't like wrestling. They don't want to see people lay on each other the whole time. They start tuning off, and then that forces the UFC to start making changes, which means it's not true to its brand, as well as a lot of other places. There's other organizations that have different philosophies and ideals. It's just a mess, to be honest with you. It's a mess across the board. And the judging is bad.
Should we be separating the MMA sport from the MMA art, though?
Right. So to answer your question, MMA is not an art. Now what you're asking is, do you think that it will be getting separated in the future to where it can become its own art form, more or less? And that people just train in that to be able to get all of the things that's comprised in MMA, like the wrestling, the grappling, the jiu-jitsu, things like that. I mean, that's kind of what people are doing when they go to an MMA gym. Now, out here it's popular. It's not back, on the Midwest and the East Coast, but out here, parents will no doubt take a 10-year-old to an MMA gym and sign them up for MMA lessons because it's oversaturated down here. It's either Taekwondo, Jiu-Jitsu, or MMA. Those are the only things that we have down here. There's no diversity anywhere else as far as other martial arts styles or systems or anything like that. So because MMA is so popular and in the face, right, and the kids are watching and they like it, parents will take them down there. And yes, a lot of these facilities, they have kid-friendly programs for MMA. The way that I look at this type of thing, I'm not a fan of it because again, I don't mean this. Maybe it's going to sound kind of negative. It almost is like a breeding ground when you do that. Like you're breeding these kids to become these fighters. Now, if that's what you want as a parent, for your kid to be in the UFC or PFL or whatever, then that's fantastic. But if I'm as a parent and I really just want my child to be able to learn an art form that's going to teach them discipline, respect, confidence, self-esteem, and how to defend themselves, I mean, I'm not sure that would be my choice that I would enroll them in. But when there's not a bevy of options and it's just Taekwondo, which I wouldn't want to put my kid in if I'm a certain type of parent, because maybe I don't want my kid with the gi, or you walked in, looked through the window and the kids were spinning around, or you didn't respect the belt system or whatever. I don't want my kid on the floor the whole time. I want my kid to learn how to box a little bit. So yeah, maybe at that point in time, yeah, then you would do that. And it is popularizing where they're separating it, but I just can't see from a safety perspective with MMA being the way that it is. I just don't feel like that's the best type of thing for a child to be participating in, unless you have a really secure curriculum in place, considering all the things that you know can happen when doing MMA. So I've taken this out, I've taken that out, I've modified this, I've added a ranking system in here. These kids can't do these submissions. If you actually have a program structure like that, then absolutely high five. That's amazing. And then I'm sure that it's either gonna do well or it's thriving and it's doing well. But I don't foresee this being the wave moving forward over the next 50 years to where it's going to branch out, it's going to become this popular to where people aren't going to want to do traditional martial arts or enroll their kids in traditional martial art programs so they can enroll them into MMA programs. I just can't see that from a parent's perspective. Hearing parents talk about how violent they feel that MMA is and don't even want to watch it, I can't envision the majority of the parents want to be able to enroll their child in the program, even if it is safe, considering that.
Now, you are going to have some parents that's not going to mind, but I think overall, like, you're going to have a hell of a time trying to market something like that, because MMA, people are going to instantly think about cage fighting and blood and ground and pound. They're not necessarily thinking about the jiu-jitsu aspect or the other, stand-up aspects of it. So yeah, it'll be kind of hard. Yeah. Let's move on. So last week, I ended the show because I said I had something I wanted to say, but I didn't want to go into it because I knew our time was short. But basically what I wanted to know is, it's when we're talking about the jiu-jitsu guys and MMA fighters, we were talking about the Money Bird situation where, he ended up getting his black belt from Jake Shields. And then we were talking about Jake Paul and the different fights that he's having and these MMA guys going to fight them, And do you think that the reason things like this happen is because the pay is so low in the MMA business for these competitors? Would a Jake Shield, would he have given Moneybird that belt if Jake Shields throughout his career was making money like a boxer? Because he wouldn't have sold himself so cheap, And same with the guys that go and fight, the UFC guys that go and fight Jake Paul. Like, would they do that if they were getting paid like pro boxers? What do you think? I don't think so. I think they would have said, no, I'm not doing that. That doesn't make any sense. Because most of the time, like if some guy that plays basketball at LA Fitness challenges, or even a G League challenges LeBron one-on-one, LeBron ain't gonna play him. It doesn't matter to him. He knows he's better than them, so he's not proving anything. What do you think?
So let me start by saying this. I don't know who watched our show or where our show will reach, and as we grow in popularity here at the main network, I'm sure that a lot of these shows are going to get more eyes on it, in the future. I have interacted and met Jake on a few occasions. If you walk up to Jake and you ask him who I am, I'm not saying he gonna know who I am. He may or he may not. I'm blessed to where I work alongside a couple, high-level championship coaches, coaching people alongside these individuals, and some of my fighters training alongside of them. So it's not odd for high-level people to be able to come in because everyone knows Dewey and a lot of the guys around them. And for us to interact, for my guys to roll with them or get instruction, or for me to talk, to those individuals or help coach alongside them or give them advice, even if they have fights coming up. So I have met Jake on a few occasions. He seems like to be the nicest guy, and a guy that, from what I understand, from what I see, exudes integrity. Is really about what it is that he does, and takes his craft relatively seriously. So I want to make sure that I start by saying that. But to answer your question, I absolutely believe that depending upon where your career is at, for some individuals, I won't even say some, I'll say for many individuals, it does determine what type of decisions they make from an ethical standpoint, and their moral and ethical compass can change a bit, and we can begin to rationalize why we would make decisions that we make based on where we are, in our careers or in our lives. And I will say that I know that he had made the move, I believe, out here, because he was out here training for some time, with Dewey and coaching and things like that. I don't know if he still resides here, but I mean that's a big financial investment to be able to make. I don't know what goes on in folks' personal lives. What I do know is that his career has concluded as relates to MMA. Now, there's all type of people doing comebacks right now. So maybe he'll come back, maybe he'll fight again. Who knows what the future holds? Competitively, as far as doing jiu-jitsu, I don't hear him being a name out here that's being thrown around as far as competing in these big organizations. So with that said, I mean, I don't know. He can have stocks. He can have some money working from him. He might have his own gym that I'm unaware of that's thriving and doing exceptionally well. He can be, investor in several other gyms or activities. But what I will say is that when you have your own two eyes and you can look at something and something makes sense and it doesn't make sense, and then there's money that's a motivator, that's a part of it, then that does become a problem, and it can be questionable, and it can prompt the questions in which you're asking the other individuals. Because number one, obviously this individual had enough sense to know that Jake Shields was a name that will give him credibility and validation if he brought him on board. Now, it's not saying to say that he isn't the only one that he approached about this proposition. Perhaps he approached some other people, and some other people say, hey, listen, man, I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole, because I still have an active fighting career. I still have an active or potentially active competition career in jiu-jitsu or whatever. I have a gym or multiple gyms that are doing really well and that's successful. I have a name. I have to sleep at night. I have to look in the mirror. My black belt holds more weight than some other people. I don't know. But what I am saying is that I think that number one, if MMA paid more money, then a lot of MMA fighters wouldn't make as many questionable decisions overall as they do. And we talked about this the other week about how they're crossing over to boxing, but boxers will not consider crossing over. I don't care what Jake Paul said, I'm gonna get in the cage. They will not consider going to MMA. And I only brought Jake Paul up because he may do it because he ain't a boxer. Now, he's been boxing, but he is not a guy that started from an amateur level, boxing with 0 fights, went through the amateur ranks and fought 100 or 200 times, went to the Olympics or whatever else, competed, then graduated to professional, worked his way up. Those are the people when I'm talking about boxers, not people that's boxing, people that come from an actual boxing lineage where that's what they've done their whole career. They have no interest in stepping in the cage. And if they hang on long enough and they're successful over a course of time, then when they start making money, the money is rewarding enough to whereas that's something that they don't have to consider.
Not at all.
We're chasing money. It's not the legacy because you know that if you go in there, you get beat. You don't even really care because you're talking about how much money it paid you. So it shows you the vast disparity in financial, a contribution and money that's being made between those two. So it's causing us to make questionable decisions, MMA fighters, by saying us on many levels. And going over taking bad, questionable boxing fights is one of them, which is the reason why people didn't understand why the Tank Davis and Paul fight was going to happen, because they're like, well, what do you get out of it? Like, you already got money. You already got a name. Like, it would make sense that this was an MMA guy versus a boxer, but what is somebody with your name? The other boxers that he beat were retired. They were not at their prime. They were not in contention or contenders, at all. It made no sense. So that's why this fight didn't make sense to so many individuals. But yeah, it's already got MMA guys making questionable decisions. With that said, and with him not having anything that we foresee being a career in MMA or jiu-jitsu outside of teaching and coaching, it does beg the question, and it's not a bad question to ask. Would he do something like this that maybe he wouldn't have done, 10, 12 years ago when he was, an aspiring MMA fighter, when he was a champion, and when he was at the top of his game? Would he have made those same decisions in that moment? So that is a question that I can understand people asking. I do believe that it is because of the disparity in pay. If we were getting paid better, the people in the MMA, forum, I think that folks wouldn't be making and chasing money and making the decisions that they're making. I don't know a lot about this Moneybird guy other than what you've shared and what I've seen, but I just haven't done this as long as I have. I just can't really take this guy seriously and foresee this guy realistically garnering the support of somebody like that without there being some type of financial incentive behind it.
But I also, man, I'd rather people just be honest. For instance, Kanye West came to me and wanted me to train him. And he trained with me for 1 year. And after 1 year, he says, Eugene, I'll give you $1 million for a black belt. What do you think I'm going to do? I'm going to give him the black belt. But at the same time, I am going to give him a black belt. I'm going to, I'll put it on him and everything. I'm going to tie it. I'm going to give him a high five. I'm going to give him a hug. Like, congratulations. But I'm not about to sit up and argue with my homeboys trying to convince them that he really, really should.
And act like that's not what time was on. I'm not going to try to act like it.
I'm not.
No, I definitely gave it to him because he gave me $1 million.
Just be like honest. Like, you got the money. Like, he paid me. Yeah, he got it. Like, somebody else is gonna give it to him. Might as well been me. Go ahead, But I ain't about to take him to the U.S. Open, Battle Atlanta, or the Capital. I'm not to get him to no big tournaments and expecting him to win. That's not happening. So just be honest. But like, all right, I got paid. Stand on your business. Unless you sign the NDA or something like that. So.
Yeah, but see, here's the loophole where people get away from. Because if we've been honest, people have done this for years. They've done this for years, but they've done it in a different way. See, people just don't think. And that comes from being a traditional martial artist versus being a jiu-jitsu guy or somebody else where maybe the tradition or the roots don't run as deep to where this doesn't make the same sense to you that it does to us. We've done this for years. You know what we do? We call it honorary black belt. We've done it all the time. We've done this for years.
Yeah.
We've given honorary black belts to the mayor of a city who's come by and given a key to the city or shook hands or came and broke a board. I want to give an honorary black belt to Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick of Detroit because or whatever. We've given honorary black belts to people that has died. We walk up to them. Honorary black belt. Here you are. They passed away. They were a parent at the school for 15 years. They never did a punch or a kick. But they're honorary black belt. We're going to put a plaque up. We're going to put them in our Hall of Fame or whatever. He could have did that.
I think President Trump just got one from somebody.
And nobody would have said nothing about it. But no, he went a step too far.
Yeah. I think President Trump just got one from someone. I can't remember who it was.
President Trump, talking about the guy that was just calling the football game a little while ago?
Yeah. I'm not even about to get on that. I'm not getting that right now at all. I'm not touching this one. I'm about to move on to the professor's perspective.
All right.
Sometimes I might say the wrong thing, so
I'm about to move on. Let's stay away from that. Let's stay away from it.
There we go.
All right. So this one, if you are an actual jiu-jitsu practitioner, this will be a treat because this one is more advanced. Chris would probably love this one. This is a more of advanced. And when I use the word advanced, I try to use it loosely because I know that in jiu-jitsu it's different because since the curriculums are vary from school to school, from academy to academy, what's advanced in one academy may not be in another. So this is set up from a north-south choke. So I taught this in a series. So I taught a north-south choke that you can finish with the arm in, right? So this is off of a failed north-south choke. You don't feel like you can get it. So I'm going to take that arm that I have right now hooked around that arm, and I'm going to lift it. And I put my shin on his ribs, right? And I know it's kind of because it's a little like a YouTube short, so you can't see the whole picture. But I'm resting my weight there and I have him on the side. Now what I'm going to do is I pushed his face and I stepped over his head. And now I just sat back. I just grabbed like my knees or my shins, and I'm going to just squeeze my elbows to my ribs and lean back. And this turns to a straight arm lock. So again, this happens where if you're going for a north-south choke, so most people teach the north-south choke where you just have the head. So if you know the north-south position, right, you just have the head. That's the most effective way of finishing the choke. Sometimes you can finish the choke with the arm in, and I'll show that maybe in the future, maybe next week. But even if you're in that position and you don't feel like you can finish it from that perspective, and you're wrapped around one arm, so you got your arm around, I have my right arm underneath his neck and my left arm under his armpit. So I'm just going to use that left arm to be able to turn him on his side. And as I do so, I'm going to just slide my left shin up to hold him in place to prevent him from rolling backwards or forward. My right hand's pushing his face down. This is what most people forget. This is why you don't see these arm bars finish this way. You don't see these straight arms finish this way anymore, because people are forgetting to push the face down. I guarantee you, your instructor told you this. You didn't think it was a valuable detail. By pushing the face down and holding it down and putting pressure, it prevents them from being able to try to turn towards you. It prevents them from being able to try to turn away from you, because all of the pressure now is keeping their face planted into the mat. By pushing his face down, so you see I got the arm wrapped, I'm around his neck. Shortly, I'm going to use that left arm as a hook to turn him on his side. Once I turn him on his side, I'm going to slide my left shin on his ribs, all right? And I'm going to use my right hand to push his face down. That will allow me to get my right leg over his face, his neck. So he can't turn on his stomach and he can't turn on his back. So right there's the shin. I still got his arm. Look how his arm's locked in position. I'm not grabbing anything. His arm's just locked there, right? I push his face. The right arm steps over his head. And then when I sit on my behind, his arm's strapped. He can't roll because my right leg is preventing him, like a regular arm bar, from rolling towards. The shin prevents him from rolling. And now all I do is I just actually lay back, and his arm hyperextends because I have it in the armpit. So by me laying back and squeezing my elbows down, it hyperextends the elbow right off the bat. So it's kind of advanced. It's something you should play with, but it's a really good move. And I like teaching stuff like this because, again, this is why people watch instructionals like we talked about a month or so ago, and all these other type of things. When you're training in an academy where everybody's getting the same information, it can be very challenging and difficult to be able to one-up somebody, which is why people like to go other places and roll and things like that. And I don't really think that when you go and cross-train and you roll somewhere else that helps. I think if anything, it helps you to be able to be more confident in executing some things you're learning at your academy. Because you know that those guys at the other place wasn't at your academy when you learned this info, and they're learning different stuff. So it's like, look, I can't catch this move on everybody here because we've been working on this for the past month. Let me go over here and see if it works by catching it on somebody else. So I believe that when you cross-train, is more to be able to gain some level of confidence in the things that you're learning where you are. But when you're talking about actually being able to catch your classmates, you need moves like this that are unconventional that people aren't going to be prepared for. And a lot of people aren't teaching moves like this. So when I'm having fits with somebody, and I'm like, man, I can't get this guy, man. The cross choke, my half choke ain't working. You know, I can't catch an arm bar. You know, he's got something for everything. These type of moves right here are clutch because they're unconventional, but that doesn't mean they're not effective. And then that's how I can catch people off guard, and that's how I can start to diversify my game. That's just my perspective. This is a great move. I think that if you try and you practice it, you'll definitely be able to catch somebody with it for sure.
Nice. And if you're listening to us on in any of the podcast apps, make sure you go to our YouTube page and check it out so you can actually see the description that Isaiah is giving also. So nice. Anything else, man?
That's it, man. Another great show, man.
That's right.
Staying consistent for our viewers.
There you go. That's right.
Yep. Lots of energy, great show, lots of fun as always, man.
Great. All right, everyone. Stay safe, stay strong. We'll holler at you next week. And I will end this stream. Travis, we still need some music, man.
We need some music. Don't make me make it. Don't make me do it.
I'm gonna have to get on AI or something. I don't have any more equipment. I don't have any more equipment anymore. Maybe I need to reach out to Blizzard, see if he give me another beat for this show too. So all right, everybody, we out.